Joining us now in New York, national editor of the Cook Political Report, Amy Walter, and national political correspondent for NBC News and MSNBC, Steve Kornacki. His new book is The Red and the Blue, the 1990s, and the birth of political tribalism.
Oh, God, this is such a great book. Holy cow.
We're just going to clip that and put it on the back of
that's the jacket right there, the new blurbs, right?
Just some noises of approval. Let's look at Tennessee first. We mentioned it coming in. If we can put that poll up here, guys. The Tennessee Senate poll. Marsha Blackburn in a statistical tie with Phil Bredesen. 47-44 is her lead there. Steve, I mentioned there was a New York Times poll a few days ago or last week that had the spread at 14 points for Blackburn. What's going on in Tennessee?
Well, the time length for that particular poll is particularly long. It's a little different than what we've seen, but we've seen 4 polls now, I think, basically this month in Tennessee. It's been Blackburn by 5, Blackburn by 8, Blackburn by 14, now Blackburn by 3. So tough to say if this shows, we could take the 14 and take the 3 and say something major's happened, or we can say, I think that over the summer, what we were typically seeing in this race was Bredesen's personal popularity was trumping his party label, so to speak, in Tennessee. And I think since around Kavanaugh, maybe that was the event, maybe it was just inevitable, but since around the start of this month, I think we have seen this trend towards what you'd call political gravity in Tennessee asserting itself. Bredesen would rather see it 3 than 14, obviously, but it's still Tennessee.
Yeah. But, Amy, this was never a 14-point race, most likely. I mean, sometimes those polls just happen. You go into the field, you get a certain, as you know better than anybody. But this was never a 14-point race. Bredesen, one of the most popular governors, even retired governors in all of America. This guy's sitting in the 60s. Chances are good this one's going to be tight to the end, right?
It could be, but I do agree with what Steve's saying, is it does seem like in so many of these Senate races where it looked like Democrats may have a shot to pick off some of these very red states, either because they had a fantastic candidate or in a place like Arizona where it looked like maybe the Republicans would get into a really nasty primary fight. That didn't happen, and what we're seeing is the political gravity start to come into play here, that red states are behaving like red states and blue states are behaving like blue states. So what it seems like where we are right now, 2 weeks before the election, is that the Senate map and the House map both seem to be sort of closing in, which is the ceiling now for Democratic gains seems to be dropping. And you're right, I don't know if this is Kavanaugh that just push this up or whether this was going to happen anyway coming into October. But I do think that we are looking at a map now for Democrats that's looking a lot tougher in the Senate, which it most likely was always going to be unless something good happened.
But, something definitely bad happened yesterday for Democrats in North Dakota, and just curious what you all think about Heidi Heitkamp, who's already on the defensive. The report that she used sexual assault survivors in her campaign ads without getting their permission. I'm wondering if that's a race that Democrats should just write off at this point.
Yeah, I mean, it looks like we've been saying North Dakota, the single toughest seat for Democrats to hold. The most recent polling, it is a little dated that we've seen out of North Dakota, but right before the Kavanaugh vote already showed a double-digit deficit for Heitkamp. So if you think the politics of voting against Kavanaugh might cut against her ultimately in North Dakota, that might have hurt her since then. This new controversy, I think, would certainly make that worse. And again, I think the story for the Senate, there's a lot of different ways to kind of carve up the map and look at it. But I think basically, if you want the Democrats to be in the game, just to have a chance to take the Senate theoretically, they got to win one of 3 at a very basic level. It's either North Dakota or Tennessee or Texas. If you can win one of those, you can be in the game elsewhere to potentially put the math together. But if you get wiped out in those 3, I really don't see it. And North Dakota is looking, already was not looking good for them.
Yeah, that's right.
Well, right now, I'm sure Democrats are keeping their eyes on Tennessee, especially after this poll last night, despite the latest round of polling. Let's go to Florida. Boy, what a tight race this is going to be. Talk about going down to the very end. This is one of those races like North Carolina was back in 2014. In the margin of error for a year, and Amy, this thing is still in the margin of error. It's all going to come down to voter turnout in the state of Florida.
Yeah, that race is never going to break. And You know what we notice in Florida is that whatever the mood is in the country at that moment, you know, when you can feel a breeze where one party is sort of has the advantage, that's where I think you're going to see the race tip at the very end. Now, the other thing that could help Bill Nelson is the fact that the Democrats' gubernatorial candidate is doing particularly well and can pull out a whole lot of those votes that Bill Nelson probably wouldn't be getting. But look, Rick Scott has been on TV a lot. When you're in the middle of a national emergency, and you're the governor, you get yourself a whole lot of media attention. In this case, some pretty good media attention. So I think this thing sticks right into the end, and then we're going to feel that breeze on election night, and I think that's what ends up tipping it.
Steve, I want to show you a generic ballot, congressional ballot, that shows 49-42 for the Democrats. And what's interesting about it is unchanged since September the 19th, which is pre-Kavanaugh. There was this feeling that Kavanaugh was going to energize one side or the other. It doesn't look like Kavanaugh has had the effect we thought it might.
Yeah, I think there's a couple different ways to look at it. I mean, you could make an argument that Kavanaugh has motivated both sides, and that if you look at these battleground House districts where Democrats are trying to flip Republican seats that are right in the suburbs, you know, maybe this has further energized Democrats in those places. And then you look at a Tennessee or a North Dakota, a red state, it might cut the other way. I just would point out the other thing in that poll, though, that Fox News poll, is it has Trump's approval rating jumping to 47%. Yeah. And that is the highest he's been in a long time. And if you look this morning at the average Trump approval rating, all the polls put together, he's at his highest level since the first week of June. Yep. Now, of course, the thing with Trump's approval rating is it seems every time he reaches one of these peaks, it crashes a couple weeks later. If this thing were to crash a couple points between now and Election Day, I think it scrambles things. But right now, that approval rating is getting close to where Republicans said it maybe gives us an outside shot at doing better on Election Day than people have been saying.
What's your view, Amy, on the Kavanaugh effect? Phil Bredesen just yesterday, in fact, came out and reiterated that he supports Brett Kavanaugh. He's glad it turned out the way it did. That's the Democrat running inside. Let's listen to what he said yesterday.
I tried to look at it primarily from the standpoint if I thought this person was qualified for the job. I did think that Dr. Ford certainly was believable, but in the end, I didn't think the weight of the evidence was there to really say that's enough to overturn the president's choice. I thought it through carefully. I've always admired senators like from the other party, John McCain, who are willing to think things through on their own and not just follow the party line on things. And I thought that was the right call.
So that's Phil Bredesen again, a Democrat running in a red state. He was a very popular governor of that state, the mayor of Nashville, but he's got to keep Kavanaugh close.
Well, I think going back to Steve's point, what Democrats were hoping in these red states was a couple of things were going to happen. Number one, the president was going to be much more unpopular and there was going to be an enthusiasm lag for Republicans. The second was they were going to be able to make this check and balance case, right? I'm not against the president. I think he's doing fine. But in places where I think he's not doing good for my state, I'm going to let him know what's what. And that was going to have an appeal. Now, when you have the president's approval rating 44, 45%, it makes it much harder for that argument to stick. And so I think overall what the Kavanaugh event really did was bring things back to sort of their sort of traditional political color, right? If you're red, you're red. If you're blue, you're blue. And I do think it is interesting, though, that as the president's approval rating has gone up, we still aren't seeing the generic ballot get worse, right? So the president's approval rating has gone up. In some of these polls, like the Washington Post poll, what happened was the reason for his rise was all Republicans. And the number that I'm spending a lot of time looking at is where independents sit. And in all of these polls that have come out recently, Gallup, Washington Post, independents still somewhere 40% approval rating of the president. That is not where you want to be if you're in an actual swing state.
Yeah, and, you know, Heidi, going back to the Tennessee poll for a second, talking about people coming home to their party, Bredesen is interesting. The poll that came out, the New York Times Siena poll that came out that showed him down by, 14, 15, 16 points, that was right after the Supreme Court fight, right after he said he would have supported Kavanaugh. And you got a reaction against him at the time, not only from voters, but also from a lot of progressives nationwide saying, well, if he's going to support Brett Kavanaugh, why do we want to support him? A week later, you know what? It's looking like a pretty good deal compared to Marsha Blackburn for a lot of progressives across the country. And for a lot of Democrats in Tennessee, that just may be Democrats coming home.
That's right. And I think it's going to be hard to dent that Democratic enthusiasm that has been there from the start. So what we're seeing now, like what Steve and Amy are saying, is that the Republicans simply have closed some of that gap. But that is my question in looking at all of these polls, Joe, is that the polling measures preference for candidates, but it doesn't measure enthusiasm. And like we said, the Democrats have had that advantage. The Republicans have closed it somewhat, but my question to you guys is the Democrats still have that advantage. So how much is that worth in some of these races where it is so close, given that the polls don't really measure the fact that Democrats still remain more enthusiastic than Republicans?
Yeah, well, I mean, in this new poll, they do ask a question about, are you more motivated now compared to a normal election? And there was, over the summer, a pretty big imbalance there between the parties. In this new poll, that's evening out a little bit. So I do think that's been the story of October in terms of these dynamics we're talking about. The Democrats have been up here since Trump got elected. The Republicans have been like here. They've ticked up to like here over the last few weeks. And the question to me, the variable is, do they stay here or does it come back down to where it was? If it comes back down to where it was, that's big trouble for a Republican election day.
Before I let you go, Amy, Steve listed 3 states that Democrats would like to control. North Dakota looks like it's drifting away. Texas and Tennessee.
Right. They can't win control of the Senate without it. The real question in my mind is what's going to happen in Arizona and Nevada, 2 states that they absolutely had believed that they were going to be able to win, to hold down any losses.
Amy, Steve, thank you both. Good to see you. We want to mention this weekend, Steve will be taking part in Politicon at the Los Angeles Convention Center, where NBC News and MSNBC will be holding panels, film events, and much more. You can find more information at Politicon.com, and all the Kornacki groupies will be out in full force in L.A.
I should say, I'm not actually going to be there. I'm going to be there on video.
Oh, you're on video.
But I hope they come anyway,
Well,
and my thoughts will be with them.
Groupies are going to stay home now. You shouldn't have said that. All right, Steve, Amy, thanks a lot. Still ahead, Jamal Khashoggi has not been seen since October 2nd, and last night the Washington Post published the last column he wrote before his disappearance and alleged murder. We will talk to his editor about his final piece next on Morning Joe.
Thanks for checking out MSNBC on YouTube, and make sure you subscribe to stay up to date on the day's biggest stories. And you can click on any of the videos around us to watch more from Morning Joe and MSNBC. Thanks so much for watching.